Christianity comes off like this mean girl who has to be the coolest one out of everyone. She has to be the prettiest, she has to be the most well liked, she has to be the it girl always. Because if anyone dares question her, if anyone dares suggest that she is not the most popular girl in school, like, she's gonna put you in her burn book. And, you know, listen, Christianity's had a bad history with burn books, like... Okay, so does anybody else find the Hallmark extended universe of Christmas movies to be like an absolute existential horror show, or is that just me? I feel like that probably is not like a controversial statement in any way, shape, or form, because I feel like a lot of people actually, if you ask them, would probably say yes. Sissa, those Hallmark Christmas movies are an absolute horror show. Why do you ask? Why are you bringing this up? So I wanted to do a glamorous makeup look because I just thought that would be fun. I mean, to me, all of my makeup is glamorous, but I wanted to do like something that's like a holidays glamour, high glam look. So that's what I'm going to be doing, which does mean I think I'm going to be doing my blush a little chill for me. But the reason I wanted to talk about this, right, is because I was talking to one of my best friends, and I was thinking about this, and I'm like, you know, it's actually super horrifying that every single Hallmark holiday movie has the same basic plot wherein a woman of a certain age who has her dream career in the big city, usually New York, but it could be LA, like, leaves to go home for the holidays, and all of a sudden falls in love with some guy who's lived there all his life, and she has to quit her job so they can be in love because the spirit of Christmas or something. And it's just like, maybe it's because I'm a lesbian, but that's just like such a horrifying thing to me, right? Like, never once is there a consideration made that perhaps he should leave his hometown. Like, she's got her dream job. She's just up for promotion, whatever it is. It's always like she's living the life she has always dreamed of. But no, she has to move back to her small hometown because that's where she really belongs. And it's like this idea that you can only ever belong to your hometown. And it's like, fuck. I feel like no queer person can ever watch a film like that and not feel just like, ew. Because I think for so many of us, if you grew up in a small town that was like, you know, homophobic to you, do you really want to be told like the only way you can ever be happy and find your true love is by going back to that hometown? Like, no. Like, listen, if you do find that, that's so lucky. I was making sure I didn't get makeup on myself. That's so lucky and that's so great for you. But like, if someone's living their best life in the big city, why is your greatest holiday lesson that they have to leave the city that they live in to go back to their hometown to like find out who they really are because they've been forgetting who they are? And it's just like, I don't get it. I don't get this like obsession that we have with like small towns and living in this small town and like this idea that this is like some idyllic life because it's the suburbs. And I don't know if this is a uniquely American thing or if like other countries deal with this too, where it's like we're just so utterly obsessed with the idea of like small town America and just a simple, small, you know, American town, usually in the South. And it's like, listen, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if you would call where I live in Texas. I guess it's not a small town, small-ish. Or, you know, where we lived when we first moved here was smallish. Like, most people wouldn't be able to name it on a map, unlike Houston or Dallas or Austin or something like that, or even San Antonio. Like, I was living in a town that, like, most people have never heard of, right? Unless you live in Texas, and even then you maybe don't necessarily know it. But, like, it's fine. But, like, if I was living in some big city, I'm not necessarily going to want to go back and relive the experience of like living somewhere smaller. You know what I mean? Like, and when I was growing up, right, when I was in high school as a queer person, I was living in Henderson, Nevada, which is not necessarily a small town. Like, comparatively, it's not the biggest town in Nevada, but like, it's not a small town either. But it was bad enough that like I experienced a significant amount of bullying. Like, even in my, especially in private school, let's be honest, I experienced a great deal of bullying. So like, for me, why would I want to go back to that? Why would I ever want to go back to a place that wasn't even necessarily a small town, but was small enough and is like, because it's considered the rich part of town, like, why is that the place I want to go back to? You know what I mean? Like, I will never understand it. I will never understand the logic of any of this. And like, this is supposed to be like this great love story for people. This is supposed to be like this great thing of like, oh, it's so romantic, and she's going back to her hometown and getting back to her roots and finding, again, it's very much this white cishet mentality too. Like, those are the people who are watching these movies, right? They are very, very, very cishet films. Like, there's no getting around that. Sorry if that's a slur to you, but there's no getting around that. Like, these films are very heteronormative. They're very cisgender normative. Like, it's just, it is what it is. That's what these films are. They rarely have a queer character that's anything more than just like a side character. I don't want the lesson of the movie to be, hey, the power of Christmas compels you to move back to your small hometown for some guy. Like, what the fuck is that? And again, I mean, maybe it works a little bit more in queer stories because there isn't that horror of like, she has to give up everything for this guy. And it's weird that this isn't like, I feel like there are people who are talking about it, but it's not like ever a mainstream conversation where people are like, that's really weird. We should probably talk about the implications of that and why it is that we're so comfortable with the idea of this woman who works in big corporate America in the big city, who needs to leave the city she lives in with all of her friends and her boyfriend, and the boyfriend's always a jerk. Like, it's never a possibility that the boyfriend's just normal. He's always a jerk. He's always terrible. He's always worse than the guy who lives. I don't know what it is. It's almost if it didn't sound so dramatic, it would feel like propaganda, because it's so like it's so contrived that the boyfriend has to be this terrible, shitty guy. And she doesn't realize it until she goes back home and sees him just for how shitty he is, because he doesn't see the splendor of this small town like I do, because I grew up here and he didn't. He grew up in the big city. He can't possibly understand. Like, it's just so odd to me. And now you've got me defending one man over another man. That's just wild. I don't want to be defending men ever. Excuse me. But like, I don't know. I just was thinking about this today. I don't watch these films regularly, but I've seen them, right? You can't like avoid them. I've seen other people react to them. I think Trixie and Katya just reacted to one. And it's like, it's always the same story. It's always the same, like, frankly, horror show as far as I'm concerned. And it's just like, how is this possible that like 50 million of the same movie is constantly being made and nobody has ever like, when are we changing the status quo? When are we changing this to where it's like, listen, if you want to be with this guy who you think is so great and so much better than the boyfriend you had in the city, why is it never a consideration that he move in with you in the city? Why do you have to leave your job? Why do you have to leave where you live? Why is it, well, he grew up here, so he can't possibly leave. You grew up there too, bitch, and you still left. Why does he get to stay and you just move in with this guy you've known for like 2 weeks? Like, make it make sense. I don't know. If the story was lesbian, would I have a problem with it still? Maybe not, because I'm kind of a hypocrite like that. But, like, I don't know. It's just, it's so stupid to me. And I don't get it. And I don't want to get it. And every time I think about it, I'm like, this is, like, to me, this is the real horror. Like, a Saw movie is never going to have what these Christmas films have. Because they're so, like, it's all the same story, and yet somehow it feels like it's like they all take place in the same universe where Christmas is like this magical thing for adults that changes people and makes them realize that the life they had wasn't as good as they thought it was, and maybe their friends are shitty and their boyfriend is shitty, and actually this other guy is better, and I should move. And it's like, what power do you think? And this is the problem too, right? This goes back to my video where I was talking about like the war on Christmas and like, frankly, Christmas propaganda, but also like just the Christian hegemony of it all. I do think there is kind of this thing, right, where whether we realize it or not, whether you consider yourself Christian any longer or not, whether you consider yourself atheist, whatever, we're all kind of indoctrinated with this idea from birth that Christmas has to be this like magical, life-changing thing where you wake up and realize maybe this life you thought you wanted isn't the life you thought you wanted. And like, yeah, I get it. That's just being in your late 20s. Like, I understand that. I understand changing your mind about shit and like friendships changing and moving and all of this. Like, that is just kind of naturally a part of being in your late 20s sometimes. But like, this idea that it's somehow attached to one holiday about one baby who was allegedly born during that day, like, it's so wild, but it's so normalized that nobody stops to question it. And I've just reached the point like, look, maybe I'm just a Grinch, but I've reached the point where I'm just not here for it. I don't care. I don't want to hear about Christmas anymore. I don't want to deal with it. I don't like it anymore. Because it's not, when you're a kid, I think it's fun. When you get to believe in Santa, it's fun. When you get to believe in like the magic and you don't have to buy gifts for people and you don't have to worry about all of the like shit, because it becomes once you're an adult, suddenly it's your responsibility to make that magic that you felt when you were a young person, right? It's your responsibility to make that for yourself and your friends and everyone you have ever known. And it's so much stress that people put on themselves. And it's like, for what? Who is this for? Like, is this actually, like, does anybody actually want this? Or are we all just doing it because we're so desperately nostalgic for something that we can never get back, that we're just running ourselves ragged trying to create this idealized version of a history that never existed? You know what I mean? This like idealized Americana that like isn't reality for a lot of people. And it's just like, it's so horrifying. And this also comes back to something too, right? Like, my mother and I were having a conversation today, and she was talking about someone, I don't know if it was someone she knew or just someone was talking about it that she heard, that was like talking about how back in the day people used to stay married. I think they were specifically talking about celebrities, but I think it applies to all people, where people are like, oh, back before social media or whatever, people used to stay married. They didn't just get divorced at the drop of a hat. And I was like, but let's think about this for a second, shall we? Because I know some people, I've even had friends who like believed that people get divorced way too quickly and too easily, and they're not willing to try and stay for the marriage. And my thing is this, right? I think the thing that we often forget is like back in the 1950s, like up until the 1970s, women could not own a bank account. Many, many women in the 1950s and 60s, like our grandmothers and sometimes our mothers, were housewives. They didn't work. They didn't have their own money. They could not have their own bank account. So like, what the fuck else were they gonna do but stay married? Like, with what money were they going to get a divorce? With what ability? Even if they were unhappy, even if they were being abused, even if they were absolutely miserable and would have gotten a divorce had things just been different. Like, I think when you're nostalgic for this idea of a world that just never existed in the first place, people love to talk about this idealized version of the past that just wasn't real. And it's like, it's so astounding to me because it's just so normalized. And so you have this thing where you have this idea of what Christmas used to be like, and oh God, every fucking generation. Millennials have done it. Gen Z will inevitably do it. Gen Alpha will do it. Our parents before us did it. Do this thing where it's like, well, when I was a kid, we had real Christmas and we did this and we did this and we did this. And it's like, girl, that's not really what it was like. And you know that's not what it was like. Maybe you have this idealized memory in your head because I think when you're a kid and you don't have to pay bills and you don't have to worry about shit, everything feels like better. And so you have this idea that your version of the past was better than it really was. But like for a lot of people, it wasn't great. And, I was raised by family, my father, my grandmother were huge Reaganites. And it's like, when you actually learn, I know this is like kind of taking a U-turn, but when you actually learn about someone like Reagan and like what he did and what he kind of stood by and let happen and how his team treated like queer people and the whole AIDS crisis, it's like, I find it very hard. And of course, just like now where people are trying to use the whole like, well, the economy was better under Trump. Like, that's what people always say about Reagan. Like, well, the economy was good. We were dealing with a lot of stuff before Reagan came in and he fixed the economy. Never acknowledging, of course, that the economics of the situation are such that it's usually the previous president who was fixing shit and the next president is the one who gets the credit for it. So we were facing an economic downturn, which Obama was kind of blamed for, and he fixed that. And then Trump got to inherit that great economy, and he tanked it again. Biden has fixed it, and now he's gonna have it tanked again. And, Trump will get the praise for it being great, and then the next guy will get the blame for when the economy is inevitably in the shitter again, because that's how this goes, and everyone has collective amnesia every 4 fucking years. Because apparently nobody ever remembers that the same shit has been happening for the last 50,000 fucking years, because nobody recognizes that the real problem isn't who's fucking president, but it is in fact capitalism. But like, that's a whole other tangent. And honestly, I guess maybe when you look at these holiday films from that angle of like a capitalist nightmare, and by the way, I realize that like in its most generous reading you can do of these holiday films, you could argue that maybe they take an anti-corporate stance because the woman leaves her corporate job in the big city. But like, it fails on every other metric. So like, even if you could generously give it that, even if you could generously say, yeah, it has a very anti-corporate message, it's like, yeah, but it's terrible in every other way. It is a dystopia in every other way. It is a horror in every other way, especially for the woman. But no, because we want this like love story and this idealized version of this holiday. And I don't get it. And it's this idea that like, it's this continued idea and this continued propaganda that everyone's life is actually made better by the existence of Christmas. This one holiday, mind you, this one holiday makes everyone's life better. I mean, even the most popular fucking animated Halloween movie is essentially about how finding Christmas made his life better. Like, The Nightmare Before Christmas is literally about Jack Skellington, who is the king of Halloween, discovering Christmas, and it makes his life better. I mean, it makes it worse for a minute, but then it makes it better. Like, that is the whole conceit of that film. And there's this whole thing about how, like, just in popular culture that just says that Christmas just makes everything better and everything is better because it exists. And like, I'm so sick of it. I'm so sick of it. And I'm not even talking about like the over commercialization of it. I'm not even talking about the fact that it encroaches onto every other holiday it's near. I'm just talking about, because that's every holiday at this point, let's be real. Like, Halloween has creeped into July. There's people who already have stuff in December for, like, Valentine's Day. Like, we have really, the over-consumerism of every single holiday and making every holiday start 6 months in advance is, like, exhausting. Truly, truly, it's exhausting. But, like, and don't get me wrong, I am fully part of the problem, especially when it comes to Halloween and fall shit, because I'm looking for Halloween shit in July and August. Like, I'm fully part of the problem there. But the same cannot be said about Christmas. Not for me, anyway. I just don't care. You know what I mean? I'm so over it. I'm so over this idea. And I think I've talked about this in another video too, where it kind of slayed me how many people, when I was working customer service, would be like, oh, this gift that I ordered like 2 weeks before the holidays is late because shit happens with the mail and I'm apparently new to buying shit online, yet you have 40 previous orders. And so now you have ruined my holiday or my child's holiday, a holiday they will not fucking remember. Like, you know, it's so astounding to me how much the holidays make people wackadoo. The holidays make people insufferable, really. And it's like, and yet we've brainwashed ourselves into this idea that the holidays are just this great, beautiful, lovely time. And it's like, no, girl, everyone's fucking depressed because there's no goddamn sunlight. The sun ends at like 4 p.m. Like, everyone's depressed, everyone is drinking themselves silly, but we've all gaslit ourselves into this idea that Christmas has to be the best time of the year, and Christmas has to be this great thing, and you have to give each other gifts, and it has to be big and great and beautiful and lights. And it's like, yeah, the lights are lovely, and the decorations are kind of pretty, I guess. But like, at the end of the day, you're putting so much pressure on yourself and everyone else. And for what? For what? Like, why? Why are we doing, like, what is this madness about? That we continue to do this thing where we continue to pretend as though Christmas is anything fucking special, that it's not just another fucking day on another fucking month. And then, you know, you get this thing, because I remember when I worked any kind of holiday, you'd get people calling in to customer service line who are like, I can't believe you have to work on this holiday. I'm like, I'm working on this holiday because your ass is calling in, because apparently this can't wait till fucking Monday. So like, obviously it's that important that you had to call in, so of course I'm going to be working. How do you think this works? Like, I find it so funny that people want to pretend like their holiday is the most important, but they also still expect everyone else around them to bend to their will and have, oh, your store's not open? You're not letting me call you on this holiday that you are talking about as the most important thing, but like, what? Only you get to spend it with your family, but nobody else does? Like, it's just, and that assumes you even want to spend it with your family. That's a whole other thing. But I just think the assumption that everyone has that you're doing something for the holiday, or that the holiday means anything to you, or and by the way, you know, people try to say, oh, what are you doing for the holiday? And it's like, okay, we know you mean Christmas, especially since when I was filming this, it was the 23rd. So like, we know what you want to say, but you can't say it. And it's like, nothing, girl. I'm not doing anything because this isn't my holiday. I don't care. Maybe I'm a fucking Grinch. Maybe he had a point. But like, even that story isn't enjoyable because it's like, oh, Christmas made his heart grow because he realized that it wasn't about the presents. And it's like, but it is though. Like, for the vast majority of people, it's very much about the presents. It's very much about making these big memories with gifts and spending lots of money. Like, that is baked into the culture of Christmas. Even in holiday media, if anyone got you a pair of socks, you hated that gift. Because unless you're an adult, you don't like fucking socks. Like, you don't need socks. You don't want socks. That's not a gift. It's practical, but it's not something you want most of the time, like for most kids. So like, there is this thing where it's like, you have to get people these extravagant toys and these extravagant gifts and things that are just, that don't matter. But that is what Christmas is. Buying shit that nobody needs and having this extravagance because that is Christmas. That is the legacy. You can try and pretend like it's I mean, it has its roots in religion, but it's been so co-opted by corporatization that even if you're a religious person, you're still more concerned about the gifts. You're more concerned about giving all of that. And it's like, I don't know, man. I just think we need to stop the madness. I'm just so tired of Christmas. I really am. I'm so tired of it. I'm tired of hearing about it. I am tired of the assumptions that everyone celebrates it. I'm tired of the assumption that it's the best thing that's gonna save this small town bar from closing all of a sudden. It's always closing on Christmas. Never another holiday. It's never closing on Valentine's Day. It's never closing on Thanksgiving. It's always somehow Christmas. I don't know what the fuck that is either, but like, it's just so tiresome to me. It's so tiresome. Get new material or like stop promoting this fucking one holiday. I don't care. I'm just so tired of hearing about it. I really, truly am. And the thing is, if you're a grown-ass adult, unless you have small children, I don't know the last time a grown-ass adult felt that Christmas was anything like they remembered it was since they were a child. You know what I mean? Like, there's every adult I know is like, I can't remember the last time Christmas felt like Christmas. And it's like, okay, well, what does that even mean? It means it doesn't feel like it did when you were a kid because there was a magic in the air. You didn't have to deal with all the fucking drama. Other people were dealing with cooking. Other people were dealing with family. Other people were dealing with, I mean, I guess if you grew up like I did with the fucking father that I had that brought drama to every holiday, but especially Christmas. You can watch that video for more on that with my best worst Christmas. Like, I guess if you grew up in that life, then even your childhood Christmases had some pretty shitty memories too. I find it so funny, right? I find it so funny that collectively we all agree that we cannot remember the last time this holiday was actually enjoyable to us. We cannot remember the last time this holiday wasn't just kind of miserable, and yet we continue to gaslight ourselves into thinking that it's gonna be different this year, you guys, if we just do something, if we just watch the right holiday movie, it's gonna be different. It's gonna be less somehow. It's gonna be better. And it's like, no, it's not. I'm so sorry to tell you, because that is just what it means to be an adult and to have to... I've worked most of the last few holidays because a lot of places I've worked were open during the holidays. I didn't work at places that were necessarily closed. So this idea that, like, if you work during the holiday, and, you know, I've known, my mother always did, I've known so many people who worked during the holiday anyway. It's like, how are you supposed to have this great holiday and this childlike wonder of this holiday when you're working it, dealing with people who are treating you like you're less than human? Like, I don't know. Maybe we should start talking about that. We all want to have this idea of what Christmas is supposed to be like and how it's supposed to be and how we remember it and all this other stuff. And it's just like, it's just not real, you guys. Like, that's just not what it is anymore. It hasn't been for most of us for a very, very long time. And I just kind of feel like we need to stop. We need to stop doing this thing where we make ourselves and each other feel guilty if we're just not feeling it, if we just don't want to celebrate. And there's a lot of reasons why someone may not celebrate specifically Christmas, but really any holiday, frankly. There's so many reasons why you may not want to spend time with family, why you may not see this as the most wonderful time of the year. Like, and we need to hold space for that. Because honestly, it says a lot that the vast majority of a lot of, let's say, worst mental health shit happens during this season. And like, yeah, part of it is because everything's super dark. Part of it is because, you know, all this other stuff. But part of it is because there is just this idea that you have to be happy and you have to be jolly and you have to celebrate and love Christmas. You have to have this spirit within you that is the Christmas spirit that is going to make everything okay in your life. And quite frankly, it's exhausting. It is literally exhausting to have to deal with. It is exhausting to constantly have this like idea of this perfect holiday constantly like thrown in your face as like, this is what it's supposed to be like, and if this isn't what you're experiencing, then you're not doing Christmas right, and you should be ashamed. And it's like, what are we doing? And like, if you've ever been someone who didn't have money, Christmas sucks for you. Like, if you've ever been someone who struggled with anything or didn't have friends and family that you could count on, Christmas sucks for you. Like, there's so many people for whom this season in particular sucks for. But we just keep pushing this narrative that you have to believe, and if you just believe in the spirit of the holiday, your life will be better and things will be better and miracle on 34th Street. And it's just like, guys, I don't know. And it's not like I don't want to have, like, I'm not a hopeless person. Let me be clear on that. I am such a big believer in having hope and hopefulness about the future. I am such a big believer generally in like being hopeful about the future. I am not really a catastrophist for the most part. Like, I don't want to catastrophize. I don't want to be that person who's not hopeful or whatever. But I just think putting so much pressure on one day, maybe two if you're really fancy, putting this pressure on this season to be so much and to like be this big thing that it just isn't. It's so depressing. And again, like I said, not everyone celebrates Christmas. And it feels like you're not even allowed to say that you don't celebrate Christmas for whatever reason that you have that you don't. Like, if you're not of the religion that would celebrate Christmas, that should be okay too. But yet, it's so often treated like you're this abnormal Grinch because you don't celebrate this holiday that everyone else has decided isn't a religious thing. They've decided arbitrarily that all of the religious shit doesn't matter. And again, like I said, yes, it has mostly become infested by the consumerism of it all, but it still has its roots in Christianity. It still has its roots in those holy ways. So like, don't kid yourself into thinking that just because it's been over commercialized, that suddenly that makes it no longer a religious holiday and no longer has those connotations, and therefore you can bully people who don't want to celebrate it on religious grounds. It's like, well, it's not really a religious holiday, so you don't have to worry about that. You know, there's lots of reasons you don't have to want to celebrate Christmas as far as I'm concerned. Like, you just can say, I don't celebrate that. For no reason. You don't have to justify yourself. I'm so tired of all of it. I'm so tired of the assumptions that everyone has to be into it. I'm so tired of the assumptions that everyone has to want to celebrate this holiday. And if you don't, you're just some big mean Grinch, bah humbug, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, fine. Then I'm a big fucking Grinch. I don't give a shit. Because I'm not gonna pretend like I want to deal with this anymore. I'm not gonna pretend like I'm not fucking sick of it. I'm not sick of the Christmas music within 5 seconds of hearing it because it started fucking November 1st and it doesn't end until, what, January 1st? You know what I mean? Like, why do I and everyone else who doesn't want to celebrate this have to listen to 500 verses of how it's the most wonderful time of the year intercut with religious songs, and we're just supposed to be okay with that. We're just supposed to accept that as the way it is. But then you get to tell me, oh, it's not really a religious holiday. Except they're playing, like, Christian songs about the birth of baby Jesus on the fucking radio everywhere, in America at least. But it's not a religious holiday. Like, what? What are we doing here? Why are we having this conversation? Why are you pretending like this is not a thing that it clearly is? It's just like, and again, it's so normalized. It's so frustratingly accepted and seen as just the way it is. And like, nobody bothers to question it. Nobody bothers to question the fact that this is just the way the world is. Or at least, again, I guess I'm being very like, this is very an America specific problem. Maybe, but I do feel like there are a lot of countries that like do this. Or I don't know how Canada is, I don't know how Europe is, but I do feel like, at least, especially in America, this is such a big problem. And it feels like a fucking, like, so exhausting. And it's so, like, gross, because it's just, people just decided it's the way it is. And it's, you can't be someone who dissents. You can't be someone who says, I don't like it. I don't like Christmas. I don't want Christmas in my life. I don't want to be with family. I don't want to be... This is a rough time for people. Like I said, this is the time when there is no sunlight anywhere after like 4 p.m. And people are depressed and they're tired and they're working and they're being told by everyone that they have to be happy. It's like this weird one time of year that's like a whole month long. But it's like the one time of year where people are like, you have to be happy. You're not allowed to be sad. You're not allowed to feel bad. You are not allowed to have a bad time. And it's just like, what the fuck is that? We've gotten, in so many ways, we have come so far in being better about understanding mental health and understanding that people have like different mental health needs and that everyone's mental health is different and like what works for you doesn't work for me. And like, we've gotten, in so many ways, I think we've really come a long way on that. And in so many other ways, I feel like, especially for this one holiday, there is just this like thing where you're just not allowed to hate it. You're just not allowed to not want to hear it. You're not allowed to not want to hear Christmas music every goddamn place you go. You're not allowed to not enjoy it. And it's just exhausting. And again, yes, I am speaking as someone who is not Christian, but has for many years kind of just gone along with the Christian holiday scheme because it's just like, well, everyone else is, like, why not just get on board or stay on board? I never really left the board. And so I recognize that for a long time I've kind of played into all of that. But I'm really trying to make a conscious effort not to. And I've really reached this point where I'm just like, I'm sick of it. Like, I'm just tired of it. And I feel so bad for people who have been dealing with this their whole life. I feel so bad for people who have had to experience this their entire life. This feeling of like, nothing else is good. Like, and by the way, there's always been this narrative that I have seen played out in media of like, well, no other holiday is as cool as Christmas. Like, there's always been this thing of like, well, Hanukkah's not as cool as Christmas. Nobody likes it as much as they like Christmas. And it's like, what the fuck is this about? Like, why do you... I feel like sometimes Christianity comes off like this bully, like this mean girl who has to be the coolest one out of everyone. She has to be the prettiest. She has to be the most well-liked. She has to be the it girl always. Because if anyone dares question her, if anyone dares suggest that she is not the most popular girl in school, she's going to cut you. And I just, like, she's going to put you in her burn book. Like, I don't get it. I really, and, you know, listen, Christianity's had a bad history with burn books, like, fuck. But you know what I mean? But it's just like this thing where it's like, there's no dissent allowed on Christmas. There's no, like, nobody is allowed to not want Christmas. Nobody is allowed to not like Christmas. Nobody is allowed to say Christmas can't sit with us. It has to be the coolest one. It has to be the one that everyone knows makes people's lives better. Like, I don't know. It has to be the most charitable. It's like there's this idea that Christmas has to be that bitch. And it's like, you're just not. Like, you're just not. And I'm so tired of it. And if we could just stop the madness. I'm so tired. I'm so exhausted from Christmas everywhere. I'm so tired of Christmas everywhere. And it's so normalized. And I'm just expected to accept it. And other people are just expected to accept it. And it's like, listen, if you are having a bad mental health time right now, like a lot of people are, fuck Christmas. I'm sorry. It is not going to make it better. No amount of shopping for people, no amount of like trying to do this thing where you drive yourself into debt just for one fucking holiday is going to make your mental health better. Like, it's just not. It's just not. And it's not worth it. Like, we just tie ourselves into knots trying to find this thing that is going to bring back the joy that we're not feeling right now. And I just don't think it's there. And I mean, I guess it's probably not going to get any better with, you know, everything going on with, you know, the election. So like, maybe we're all going to be forced to celebrate Christmas together. I don't know. But it's just like, oh, fuck, man. It's so depressing and it's so exhausting. So anyway, thank you for everyone who, by the way, thank you for everyone who joined me the last previous 20 days for my December daily vlogs. If you notice that I stopped, it's because I was losing my mind. Because as it turns out, vlogging every day is very, very difficult and it's not actually that fun. And I mean, it's fun to film it. Editing it was starting to grate on my spirit. So I was just like, you know, I'm just gonna stop because this isn't worth my mental health. This isn't worth feeling this way. Like, I am tired. I want 2024 to be over. I want to believe that 2025 is going to be better. And I want to no longer hear about Christmas. I don't want to do Christmas music anymore. I don't want to do any of it. I'm just so over it. But hey, at least I look pretty. And this is a very glam look. This hair is like giving like old Hollywood glamour. And then like this red lip is giving old Hollywood glamour. But I love the like green eye with a little bit of red underneath. I'm not going to say happy holiday or Merry Christmas or anything like that, but I am going to say I hope that you are having the best time that you can. I hope that things get better. I hope that you are taking time for yourself. I hope that you know that it is okay to not be okay right now, and it is okay to just be exhausted and not want to deal with Christmas and not want to be around people, especially family. Like, I hope that you know that that's okay and know that it is something that you can do and should be able to do. And anybody who wants to have a problem with that can take it up with me personally, because that's bullshit. Like, you deserve to be happy and you deserve to have your mental health respected, because it's hard out there right now. And a lot of us are struggling for a lot of different reasons. And it's overwhelming. And it's also like, I don't know, something does feel kind of shitty to like try and pretend like everything's normal with all the fucked up shit that's going on. Like, not like ignoring even the election shit for just a second. There has been so much fucked up shit that has happened this year, and so many people that have been hurt and unjustly imprisoned, and so many people that have been killed, especially in Gaza and Palestine, and just all of these things. And like, it does feel kind of fucked up to try and like be normal and pretend like we can just do Christmas. Like, I don't know. That's not the only reason, but I feel like all of those things together, it's like, how are we supposed to just be like, yeah, Christmas, you guys, it's the most wonderful time of the year, but it's not. It's really fucking not. It's the time when everything's fucking dark. If you have snow, then I'm sure that's hard in its own way, because you can't really leave even if you wanted to, and it's cold. Here, right now in Texas, it's been fucking in the 70s and 60s, and it just keeps getting hotter, so it's not even been cold. I would love for snow, but that's not gonna fucking happen down here. So like, I don't know, it's hard to really give a shit about the holiday. The one everyone thinks is the holiday, the only one that matters. Like, it's hard to give a shit. It's hard to care about Christmas. It's hard to be interested in Christmas. It's hard to give a shit about any of it. I'm exhausted, okay? And I feel like I've said this in like 50 different videos so far this month, but who knew? The feeling continues. So like, yeah, I don't know, guys. Maybe, you know, maybe we sit this one out. Maybe we sit them out forever. I don't know. Just my thoughts. Yeah, I hope you have a wonderful day. If you enjoy this video, please like, comment down below, Tell me, I don't want to talk about the holiday. So let's talk about what are you looking forward to in the new year, if anything? What are you hopeful for? What would you like to see in the new year? What is a project you're working on right now? Do you knit? Do you sew? Do you do art, drawing, makeup, whatever? What do you like to do? What gives you joy? I think we need to talk more about joy. I think that would be a good thing. So let's talk about that in the comments below. Subscribe to this channel, of course. You can also become a member of my Patreon, patreon.com/NarcissaDeville. That is my members only channel. You get special access monthly videos. This month, as I said, I am going to do a video reviewing my favorite fanfics that I have read this year. Until next time, stay devilish and see you next Tuesday.